everybody. Welcome back to A Good Things Marriage Chats. I'm Tiara.
And I am Adrian, and welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. So, on today's episode with our meat and potatoes entree, we have a special guest with us today. The beautiful,
Oh my.
I'm not gonna. Our wonderful, wonderful leader, teacher, preacher, and all the eaters. Dr. Conny Williams. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So glad to have you on the show today. We're so ready to just chat, discuss, and soak up some of your much wisdom and knowledge. And so we wanted to dig in today. Well, first, is this first thing we do? We got think. Oh, we got housekeeping rules.
Well, we gonna do that.
We're gonna do it later.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So she said we digging into meat potatoes. So today we are talking about sex behind the scenes, meaning we want to dig in a little bit to the background. Like, we've had a sex therapist on the show before, Alicia, and we actually have her coming on next week as well to talk about some more. But we want to kind of talk about sex as far as like from a spirituality standpoint, from how does God really look at it? What's bad? What's good? What's some of the misconceptions about it? What really happens when you have intercourse? So that's kind of stuff we want to dig into today.
Yes.
So we're gonna get a little deep. Today's a little deep.
Yes.
But we're still gonna have fun. So
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Connie, if you could just give us a little bit about you, and then we're gonna jump right on into the questions.
Well, my name is Dr. Connie, and I am the Dean and Professor of Cohen Institute. We teach the scriptures from a first century perspective. And we also teach all the layers of what people call the Bible, which includes the mystical aspect or the spiritual aspect, which is called Kabbalah.
And how long have you been teaching, Dr. Connie?
Oh my God, since 1991?
Wow.
Ooh,
Something like that. Could be off a day or two.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit just for our audiences, because we have not did any subjects yet about Kabbalah or anything like that. Can you just
okay.
tell me what
Sure.
Kabbalah is?
Kabbalah is a Hebrew word that means to receive. Basically, it is a spiritual aspect and the deepest aspect of the scriptures, which one receives. And in Christianity, I suppose you can compare this to a Rhema word, just much, much deeper. Kabbalah is a way of life. It is connecting to God, Hashem, Yeshua in a personal way through various methods, biblical methods.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So you guys got a little basis, a little understanding about the perspective of what Kabbalah means, what it looks at. And this is just like a little bit. There's a lot more. So there's
a lot
going to be able to cover today.
Yeah.
But we just want to talk about a little bit from a hint of it from the perspective of talking about sex. And even this goes a long way.
Yeah.
So first, Dr. Connie, can we talk about what the spiritual intent behind sex is? What in your studies, in your opinion, your perspective, did God mean? What was the intent behind creating it?
Well, of course, there's the obvious intent, and that's procreation, right? That's most certainly that. However, from a spiritual perspective, you can say sex is heaven on earth. It is a spiritual connection, and its power or energy, what people call orgasm, is the strongest and most powerful energy that a human can experience while here on earth.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of times, and one of the reasons why we want to talk about this today is because, like, I know people know deep down, like, that God created sex, but people don't, they want to separate it. Like, God is over here and I can't talk about that or being ashamed of it. And it's just because of the way we were brought up in the Christian church. We kind of taught from that thing.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of perversion. There's a lot of what's another word? A lot of
just the ickiness.
Yeah, people put ickiness to it, you know, when it's really meant to be like a beautiful, sacred, spiritual thing that he created.
Especially with how I guess it's taught in the church. It's not really taught in the church.
It's not. Don't have it. That's it.
Yeah. And then when they do have it, it's like, what am I supposed to do? How does this work?
Yeah.
So, and then
sex is spiritual. It is spiritual, period. The problem comes in when we try to make it just physical.
Yeah.
It's like a drug. You reach that point of satisfaction and a couple hours later, it's gone.
Right.
That is because that intended connection has not been made.
Yeah.
And it is really a gift that God has given us. And it's even more than that. As C.S. Lewis said, we are sex. We don't have sex. We don't do sex. We are sex. We are sexual beings. It is how we deal with that sexuality that, causes problems.
Yeah, and we had a conversation at our service a while ago about how there's so many differences as far as how things are taught across other countries, about how this is taught, how it's done, how it's seen, how you're led to believe that you can express it. Right. And here, you know, in the US, anytime somebody even remotely expresses it, it's automatically looked at kind of like, you know, instead of appreciating it, because and they're only doing what they're been taught to do. Yeah. They're feeling comfortable about it, or because of how it is really been perverted in social media or on TV to made to be like over and beyond, you know, certain artists, music artists, things like that just kind of made it.
Yeah.
It made it hard to see it from a spiritual standpoint, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So, Dr. Connie, do you believe or think that God sees sex as like a big deal? Like, I guess in marriages and just in general?
Sex is a big deal. And from God's perspective, it is that as well. From a spiritual perspective, imagine before you came to earth, you were connected to God, to every soul, to everything that exists in creation. Then you come into physical reality, and it appears that you lose this connection or this oneness. So when two people become one, as the scripture states, you know, when they become one, obviously physically for a few minutes, they become one through connection, a physical connection. However, there is a recognition and a coming together with that oneness for a brief moment. And that's why the experience is so explosive and deep. And people will say things during sex that they would never say, during the casual day, because everything is open. Emotions are open. The body is open. Everything is open. And you become like this blank slate, and everybody can see, well, everybody, just one person, hopefully,
right.
can see and feel what's within that other person. Yeah. It is a spiritual experience. And when people understand that and they have this in mind before engaging in the act, it is the most beautiful and powerful thing that two people here on earth can experience. Yeah. It's like a little vacation of going home.
Right. That's good.
That is.
So when we talk about our, because our audience, we cater to both engaged and married couples. So speaking specifically to those who are already married, would you say that the act of sex is actually, like, I know we just talked about you coming one in that act, but is it creating a process of becoming one? Like, is that helping along the process of becoming one?
Definitely. The more it happens, especially when we are open and when we allow ourselves to connect on all levels, the closer and the closer that couple becomes, not just on the physical level, but also on the emotional, the spiritual, on every level. I have a friend that's been married for 100 years or so, and they have that understanding, and it gets to the point, and you hear it sometimes from old couples, that you don't even have to talk. You can sit in the same room and know what the other person is thinking or feeling, and you can respond in that same token. So more and more that couple becomes intertwined spiritually.
Yeah.
But
So-
that only works with the intent. If it is just a physical act and, love them and leave them type of thing, then that is not necessarily going to aid in it.
Yeah. So is that I guess like I know we talk about like soul ties and things, but like when how I'm visually seeing it in my mind is like the souls coming together and literally like not just your physical body, but like your souls coming together and twisting
Soul
up.
to soul, most certainly. Well, the truth of the matter is the souls are always connected. However, we are not aware of it. But during sexual intercourse, you become aware of it, especially if it happens for both parties at the same time. It's undeniable, whether you know about this stuff or not.
Right.
It's undeniable.
Yeah.
And
So
when that is kept sacred, when that is held in high esteem by husband and wife, then the marriage will be stronger, the children will be stronger, their connection will be stronger, because we transmit all these things. Even during conception, these things are transmitted.
So it just made me think about, there's always going to be times where, one spouse may want to, one may not. And then you also have those times where maybe there's been some type of disagreement or something between the two. And there's even in that situation, there's probably usually somebody who's probably wanting to connect one another, or some people do it, make up to break up or whatever. Not break up, but you get what I'm saying. Trying to make up from whatever they just
Make up sex, yeah.
Right. So I guess my question about that is, I know that men and women are built differently. And so when it comes to women, at least a lot of them, like a lot of things is really like in our mind, in our brain, it's going a mile a moment. And for a lot of them, it's kind of hard to get in that space if they're upset. Whereas a man,
right,
it don't really take them anything.
Well, the space they really though engage in is not necessarily that spiritual space. Men live more externally, and you can tell that by the genitalia, right? It's external. Women are more internal. But it's not just the women where it starts in the brain. It also starts in the man's brain. Sex begins in the brain. That's where it begins. And that's when that sexual union cannot always be achieved because one doesn't feel like it or the other one doesn't feel like it. Those are things that couples have to work on, what will be done about that. The scripture tells us, your body's not your own, and hey, wife, your body's not your own either. Understanding that principle that you are not alone, you are not your own in that sense. Now, that doesn't mean to say, whenever he feels like it, do it, or whenever she feels like you do it. There are legitimate reasons why, one cannot participate. And couples need to make room for that. Understanding should be there. Hey, I have a headache. Do you really have a headache? If you really have a headache, then of course it won't be enjoyable. And then he should see that and step back. and wait for a more convenient time. So sex in itself hinges upon the relationship as a whole. How a couple communicates, how a couple interacts with it, what they understand, are they on the same wavelength, spiritually speaking.
Right.
And all these things add to the equation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's why if you take it seriously and if you understand it is a spiritual thing on both sides, it can be wonderful. But if both sides do not understand, then there may be some gaps and some friction there.
Yeah. So I guess my follow or add-on question, what I was saying is coming together for that makeup sex, is that actually helping to, on a spiritual perspective, is it actually helping to bring them back together?
It can, because it is a release of energy.
Okay.
And usually when we're talking about makeup sex, one of the parties usually really likes it, sometimes both of them, but you're releasing emotions, you're releasing, and even though it's on an emotional and physical level, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, and so there's not a problem with that.
Right. Right.
I remember you saying one day at service that I guess the energy released could be so strong that like if you wanted to like think of someone that needs healing, you could send that energy.
Right. But that is a very, very difficult thing to do, because that means that you have to be able to harness that energy and also project that energy. And it has to be in agreement with the other person. They both have to understand that it is possible, because that energy is the most powerful energy that exists available to mankind. And yes, it can be healing, it can be explosive, it can really do a lot of things, but people will not be able to experience that if they haven't gotten to the first level of recognizing, hey, this is a spiritual act, we coming together as one, being in that mind. And then you have to learn these other things, which are really meditative, and that takes time. That develops over time. But yes, it is possible.
So what would you say are some of the misconceptions about sex when it comes to spirituality?
That sex is bad. Some of our church fathers are well, don't really want to say our, because we teach in the course here next trimester, we'll find out they're really not the church fathers. Nevertheless, the church fathers have often expressed in their writings that sex was nasty and it shouldn't even be done. The only reason why it should be done is to procreate. And those type of teachings, have come down to the common man. And of course, it was believed. Nobody wanted to be estranged from God. And so that has caused a lot of problems. Depending on society, I always found it weird how, for example, how Christians are very, I call it prudish, right? We don't talk about sex. We don't, if we do, it's going to be with a therapist, or it's going to be hush hush or whatever. Whereas in Judaism, it's openly discussed without any shame, without any, because they are taught. They are being, how else can you send this energy somewhere if somebody doesn't teach you, right? So society, your environment has a lot to do how you perceive what sexuality is, and how it should be, how it is appropriate. And so, in this day and age, we have a lot of sexual problems. It's abused in the music industry, on the movies, just anything goes. So it has lost its sacredness. You want to just go anywhere and you can get it, so it has lost its value. But that's not really sex the way God sees it. Right? Sex is supposed to be something extremely special and spiritual. But, what can we do?
That's true. So, last question that we do have for you, and I'm just going to read off the thing because that's a lot to remember. How is sex determined to be more powerful or potent in a marriage? Oh, that's a good question.
Okay, I somehow missed that first, but how is sex determined to be more powerful? Okay, I'm not sure I'm understanding that. How is sex to be determined?
So I guess in a marriage, how is it or is it even considered to be more powerful if you're in a marriage?
Most certainly. Most
And
certainly.
and
Because you are under a covenant. You are under a covenant, and people say, I don't need this little piece of paper. You'll be surprised what difference that little piece of paper makes.
right.
It brings, just psychologically, it brings value uh, uh, to the table. I was talking to one of my I used to pastor years ago, ages ago, and one of my members came to me and told me how she used to cheat on her husband when she was out in the world, but that it was always better at home.
Mm.
That's what
Okay.
she said. And I'm thinking, why did you cheat in the first place if
Right.
it's better at home?
Right.
Why did you? But usually when women, especially in those days when they cheat, it's usually out of revenge, tit for tat, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Right. Right.
You cheat, I cheat,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So it's not about the sex at all. It's about something else. But that's what she told me. She said it is always better at home. And so I don't know how anybody feels, that's married and step outside, if they feel the same way or not. But that's just an example
Yeah.
of that, you know. So I think open communication and being on the same wavelength is really essential.
Yeah.
Because if we're not on the same understanding, same wavelength, then there's the coming together will not be as connected as it could be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If one intends to, oh, we can have sex and we can take that energy and heal grandma. The other person, I'm just trying to have fun.
Right. Right. You don't want to be thinking about grandma while you do.
Right.
Right.
Awkward.
So,
So if that is something that someone desires. But I think the beginning point is to recognize that sexuality is more a spiritual act than it is a physical act. And I think the proof is in the pudding, because everybody is just running around sleeping with anybody and everybody, and don't matter who that is, what that is, that it's just casual, like candy.
yeah.
So we've lost the understanding of how powerful and sacred it really is and can be
Yeah.
between two people. And when these two people understand that, that's a beginning. That's where you can start off and discuss it and be open about it. And a lot of times when that begins, oftentimes people have to lose the prudishness, because it's hard sometimes to all of a sudden talk about these things that you never talked about before, what I like, what you like, and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
So it is possible, but communication is obviously always the beginning point of that, expressing that, and hopefully it is heard. And if it is heard, then you have a communication that is beginning, and you go from there.
So just to add on a follow-up question to that, you made me think about something you just said. From the Kabbalah perspective or Judaism perspective, however you want to explain, if someone maybe struggles in their marriage, and I'm more so really thinking more so from like newlyweds, and maybe they've had a previous history of having sex with other people, is there anything that you would suggest when people are trying to um rid of what they've done? Like, I know we've talked about soul contracts and things like that, and I know that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, if there's anything that you know of that could help someone in a new marriage coming in that needs to be rid, or if it's just as simple as what a lot of times they talk about in church, just praying and asking God to break soul ties.
Yeah.
I guess that's like a comparison what I'm trying to say.
I'm not sure that when people talk about soul ties, I'm not sure that there's necessarily always a soul tie when somebody engages in sexual activity that is not meaningful, that is not. I don't necessarily agree with that 100%. I think it'd take a few more runs to get there to really establish a soul tie. There can be many reasons, and it's hard for me to answer that without really knowing specifics of when you say, okay, I've had sex before, now we married, and now we're having problems. What kind of problems are we having? That's my question.
So I guess I'm thinking more so maybe
is it a sense of guilt from the person that has had?
That's what I was thinking. Guilt, maybe.
Yeah, we can use that example.
Yeah.
We can use that
guilt
example.
About having slept with somebody before they got married.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why are they having guilt?
I guess
are you speaking from a Christian perspective?
Yes.
You're supposed to wait until you get married and that sort of thing. Okay. Now I'm online. Okay. So the script so the scriptures that they are referring to was actually spoken to virgins.
Mm-hmm.
It was not spoken to widows, divorced people. Mm-hmm. It was particularly spoken to virgins. And you have to put yourself back in that time. They got married very, very young. Mm-hmm. They were espoused at their bar or bat mitzvah, which is 12 and 13, respectively, and sometimes espoused at birth. And and the reason for that, it was so that there would be no comparison. Mm-hmm. You can't compare your husband to somebody else if you never had someone else. So that alleviates a whole lot of problems.
Right.
Yeah. Where in today's society, everybody been out there before they get, they have a baby first, then they buy a house, and then they get married.
Right.
I mean, that works for you. Wonderful. Right. However, with that comes problems, with that, or can come problems. Now, some people don't think about that at all, don't bother them at all. And I guess that's good for them. But the reason it was said is so that they would not have comparison. Mm-hmm. So once you have had other partners before you enter the other relationship, forgive yourself for one, because God forgives you. So forgive yourself. Yeah. Communicate that to your future husband / wife. Communicate that and make a pact and say, okay, from this day forward, it's a new thing. It's just me and you. We've both been out there, and there's really nothing that you can do about but that. That's what forgiveness is for, literally, to free yourself of the things of the past.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking about abuse, then that's a whole nother.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't even.
That's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
I know it's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's good. Can you think of anything else that you want to cover, ask?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah.
We thank you so much for joining us on today's episode, Dr. Connie. We appreciate you.
Yes, we're.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes,
I enjoyed myself.
And we definitely have to have you back again soon on, I don't know what topic.
Okay.
We're going to have you back.
Do you want to
All right, sounds good.
Dr. Connie, information about the school and where they can find you online if they're interested?
Oh, okay.
Rolling?
Cohen Institute can be found at cohenstl.org. And we got new classes coming up on January the 6th. And one of our classes called The Drama of the Lost Disciples. Wow, that's going to be an eye-opener for a lot of people of what we thought our history says and what it actually did.
Yeah.
And the other class is The Secrets the secret doctrine of the Kabbalah, which actually has to do with geometry.
Yeah.
So we will continue that study in the second class. And we start January the 6th. We are extremely affordable. And on any budget, anyone who wants to learn more about God, get a degree, whatever it is that you're searching for, we can provide that.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for sharing. And you guys reach out to Dr. Connie if you have any further questions or about today's topic, or if you're interested in enrolling in school, you can reach out to her.
Yep. I'll have all the information down below in the description.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Connie, and we'll see you soon.
All righty then.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.